Guys, welcome to Ampersand Unique Gifts and Home Decor. My name is Sarah. Today's video is going to be an upcycle for some thrifted wood totes. So we're going to take some of them and just give them a completely new look. One, we're going to give a completely new purpose. And I'm hoping that this will help inspire you when you're out thrifting, or if you have ones at your home that you would like to upcycle and give a new look as well. Our first project, or tote number one, is this wooden chicken tote, and I honestly believe that it was handmade, but I don't know that for sure. We're going to be using Sweet Pickens milk paint in the color Birdie, and this is actually what's left from a craft kit from Jamie Ray Vintage, but I'm using up some of my old items here. And if you're not used to milk paint, what it is it's a powder form, and you do equal parts powder to water, and I am using some warm water here. It works better when it's a warm water. And then I'm just using this wire whisk to make sure I get all the lumps out of it, and you're going to stir it until it's about the consistency of a melted milkshake, and you can leave it sit for a while and it'll get a little bit thicker if you need to have a little thicker consistency. Say for example you over water. So I am just taking this paintbrush. It's not exactly the best paintbrush, but it has some long, loose bristles, which is really good for getting down inside this. It's kind of like a beadboard that the chicken is made out of, and then getting in between the slats as well. The thing about milk paint, it is thinner than some other paints if you're used to using, say, a clay-based or a chalk-based paint. So it goes on rather thin at first, but that's okay. Get that first coat on there, and then when we come back with our second coat, you can see how much better that coverage is. So don't let milk paint scare you because it's thinner or because you think it's going to take a whole bunch of coats. I do go ahead and just kind of slap on that paint, and then I go back and take long strokes to smooth out and even out my brush marks. So I am using a heat gun, aka an old hairdryer, to dry the paint for two reasons. One is because it doesn't keep. Milk paint, once you've mixed it up, it really doesn't keep. And I want to make sure that I can keep working on my projects and go right into that next coat, and I don't have to wait and let my paint continue to get thicker or go bad. The second reason, I said there were two reasons. The second reason is because, I'm not going to lie, it was actually about 10 o'clock and I just wanted to get done. I was tired. But what we're doing here is getting our second coat on, and like I said, you can see how much better it will cover with that second coat. So it usually takes about 2 coats, maybe 2.5 if you've got some places that it looked a little thin and you need to go back over. Once it was completely dry, I am going to use my little finger sander here. I love this thing. I will put a link to the Amazon purchase in the description of this video. But it's soft, it's very easy to hold on to, and it comes with like a bazillion little sanding strips in all different grits. So I'm using a 240 here, and I'm just giving it an overall sand. I think my bottom piece, the plywood, is starting to come apart. We'll fix that here in a second. But let's go back to sanding. And milk paint will sand just buttery smooth. So I'm just kind of getting any little chips off of here and sanding it down to make it smooth. And now we're going to hop in and use our 2CA Star Bond glue. I will put a link to this in the description as well. I do get a tiny little bit of a commission from Amazon when you purchase items from my link, but it does not change your cost at all. You still get the same great Amazon costs. So I put that glue down in there, and then this is the accelerator, and it causes it to dry and hold in about 15 seconds. So it is really great when you don't want to have to leave something to sit and dry with some of the other glues. If I was using a wood glue or something, then I would really have to wait. And this Star Bond glue does come in multiple colors, so if you were using it with the dark wood before, then you can get a dark color. It comes in like 2 or 3 colors. There's a black, But I'm just using clear here. And this one was starting to kind of peel even more as I was going down there with the glue. So I just went ahead and went all the way across the bottom here and made sure that it had a healthy amount of glue, and then sprayed my adhesive down in that gap and started to just kind of hold it, and then realized it would actually make more sense to just set it down and push down on it since it was that whole bottom side. But this will hold it perfectly, no problems, no concerns. It will not come undone later. And I'm going to grab some of my paint left here and just cover in that gap and make sure that, it was good as new. You get it. This is just a dry paper towel, or actually I think it might be a flour sack rag. I've already forgotten. But I'm just wiping it off really well because we are going to use the Iron Orchids Design Flower Transfer, one of the ones from this summer's release. I think it's Ditsy Bloom, something like that. And I have actually, cannot tell a lie, I've already picked out the ones I want to use. And it's because there are two that are kind of reverse images, and they have colors that are very complementary to this blue, this birdie blue that we're using. So I'm just going to figure out how it was that it fit on here the best. I want to make sure I don't have any hanging over the edge. And so before I take the backing off, I'm just making sure that I know exactly where I'm going to put it on here. And so I did not seal my milk paint, and that could potentially be a big no-no. If you do not want a distressed look, then I recommend that you do make sure that you seal in your milk paint, because you could run the potential that it doesn't stick and that pieces of it peel up. So I'm using the plastic applicator stick that comes with all IOD transfers, and I give it an overall rub, and then I go back and pick a spot to commit. And I start to peel up. I like to continually turn mine around and work my way back toward the middle. Some folks will just work on one side and go to the other. But I like to do this just to make sure it doesn't slide right at the end. And here it is, absolutely beautiful. You can see some places where it did peel up, it didn't stick, but again, I'm going for that distressed look, so I don't mind at all. If you've been watching me, you know that I have absolutely been milking this can of Debi's Design Diary clear wax, and I do finally, with these projects, I do finally get to the bottom and can't get any more out, but I am giving this an overall clear wax, and the milk paint needs to be sealed in, but I waited till after I put the transfer, and transfers need to be sealed in as well. So that is why I went ahead and waited until I got the transfer on. And now I'm going to use Debi's Design Diary dark wax, and I'm getting all those little grooves down in there. There's a lot of texture in this wood. It had a lot of grooves. And I just want to make sure I get that dark down in there because we're going for that aged and distressed look, using an old t-shirt that I cut up, and I'm wiping off all of that excess wax. I did get a little bit of crackle in my milk paint. I love it. You can see kind of a crazing and crackling. And then that wax, sorry, it's a little blurry. That wax does get down in there and really bring that out. And so here, same thing. I'm going to cover it with that clear wax, and then I'm going to go back in with the dark wax. And the reason I'm using clear wax first is it allows me a little bit more movement of the dark wax. So I can come back, and when I wipe off that dark wax, it helps to wipe off the excess easier, just leaving the dark wax down inside those grooves. So again, this is made with kind of like a beadboard piece of wood, and I'm making sure that I get that dark down in there. And of course, obviously you want to get the dark down in the grooves because that's what it is. This is the dirt. We're adding the dirt, the years and years of dirt that gets down in there. So if it's not down in the lowest spots, it doesn't really make any sense. So I get it all down in there and come back in and wipe it off. And I decided that that was a little too dark. So you can go back in even after you've applied the dark and add your clear again. And it acts a little bit like an eraser. So that'll get it off the top part, still leaving it down in the lower part. And I am doing the transfer on the other side. I know it's a little odd the order I did it in, but I had some paint that was still a little bit wet where I'd done a little touch up where I had it. But here it is finished. Here is our finished product. Let me know what you think. Do you like the before or the after? And tote, or project number 2, is this little natural. I don't know if this is handmade or not, but it kind of looks like the top part of a heart. But we're going to use our milk paint. I've still got some left, so I decided that I would go ahead and use it here. The difference in the one we did a second ago and this one is that this is a very natural wood. It doesn't have any kind of coating or sealant on it, so it really sucks that milk paint in. Where the other one, because it had a finish on it, that's why I did get that crazing and crackling. This will actually soak it in, and I will be a lot less likely to have any of that chippy that I had on the other. But either way, I'm going to go ahead and give this an overall coat using that paintbrush with those long, soft bristles. A little bit pain in the neck on flat surfaces, but absolutely wonderful when you're trying to get down in between all those little slats. So the look for this one is going to be a paint inlay, and I think this is where that Ditsy word comes in. I can't remember the name of the floral transfer. I will put all the products that I have used in the description, so if you are interested in seeing the names so that you can find these with a stockist, an IOD stockist near you, you'll know what to look for. But anyway, this is a paint inlay, and they are actually sheets that have paint on them. So I am deciding what exactly I want to, what part of the inlay I want to show here. And I am doing the same mistake that I did. If you saw my video where I upcycled the little side table cabinet with the blue and white, I just did exactly the same thing here. And it doesn't matter here, but it could matter like it did on the cabinet. And that is I have it paint side up. When I apply it, it'll be paint side down, which means it'll be mirrored or opposite of what I'm doing. So make sure that you think about that when you're deciding what to put on here. And again, it won't matter here. But if I were matching it up to something, then it would, because it would be backwards. I am out of milk paint, so therefore I'm going to be putting this into Debi's Design Diary Liquid Patina. It's a clear sealant. Word has left me, but anyway, it will go into this. This is a top coat, and obviously clear. It's called Crystal Clear Chandelier. But I'm going to put a very healthy layer on here first, and I'm going to put my paint inlay into this. You can also put your paint inlay into any color, and normally what I do is just put another layer of the color that I've used, but I have finished my milk paint. So I am spritzing my paint inlay to kind of activate that paint, and you can either do that or you can just plop it down in there and then spray it once you have it there. So here I am about to put it upside down. You guys, I don't know why, I just seem to be struggling, probably because it's so late at night. But you want to make sure that your grid is up and your paint is down. And it sounds kind of crazy. Sometimes you look at it and you're like, how on earth could people get confused? But trust me, it's not as hard, or as, not as hard as it sounds. But just make sure you can see your grid lines on the top. And now I'm just taking a paper towel and I'm very gently pushing down to make sure that my paint is getting into all that liquid patina. Be careful when you do this. Don't shift it. You will smear your image. And I discovered it has kind of some folds and wrinkles, and then I think, oh, there's not actually any paint right there. It's just in the clear part, so it'll be okay. And then I'm going to go ahead and flip it down, and again, set it down carefully so that it doesn't shift that other one and smear it. And I went ahead and covered the other side with the liquid patina, and same thing, spritzed it, and now I'm taking a dry paper towel and just kind of pushing that down and making sure that the paint is connecting with that liquid patina so that everything will show up. Once it is dry, I come back with a wet paper towel. So you know that it's dry because it gets very opaque looking again. And you take a wet paper towel, or you can spritz your actual, sheet right here, your product, and then you gently peel up that top coat. And or that top layer, the paper. If you get any resistance, then go ahead and get it wet again and just gently pull. Now, don't throw these away because you can use these up to like 3 or more times. Just, you want to let it dry, and then you can go ahead. See, it still has a lot of color. But here you go. You can see it looks like a hand-painted piece. I did lose a little chunk there where I wasn't careful before when I first pulled it up, but that's okay. Again, I'm going for a distressed look. I'm taking my little hair dryer and drying it very well, because when I flip it down to pull off the other side, I don't want to risk that I smear that and do anything. So see where it's real opaque? You can tell when it has dried, and I'm just spraying my paper towel, and that way I can, reactivate and that top sheet, and then I get enough common sense to just spray the whole thing rather than trying to just do my little paper towel. And I get it good. It doesn't have to be saturated and sopping wet, but you want to make sure that it's wet enough that you can peel that up very carefully. And here you go. We will reveal the side number 2. Absolutely stunning. So now I'm going to run out into the shop. I let that dry very well. It's the next day. And I run out into the shop and I grab my Rust-Oleum clear coat in matte, and I give the whole thing a good cover. This dries extremely fast. And I give the entire piece just one layer here so that my the shade of my paint is all the same color. But a lot of people will just mix water and that liquid patina in a bottle and spray it. And some people will go straight on with a brush or a rag and cover it. But I have smeared way too many that I wanted to be safe. And so now I'm taking my little finger sander and I'm just sanding where it would wear naturally. So, you're putting your hand in there and getting something out. You're carrying the handle. That's where it's going to wear naturally. I don't want it to have, I don't want to have a spotted look. I just want to go around the edges and everywhere that it would naturally. So the different look on this one is our Debi's Design Diary white wax. I don't want to darken this at all. I like the light color, and so I just put a little bit of that white wax on a paper towel, and then I take a different paper towel and rub it in, and oh my, that's a bit much. I did not put any clear wax down. I added that white wax, and it almost washed out my inlay here. So I'm coming back with clear wax and kind of erasing it. So again, remember, that you can do that, and don't lose hope if you've done that either with dark wax or white wax. So then I'm just taking my brush and kind of getting down in those grooves and not putting it on the sides where my paint inlay are. I do go ahead and do the slats and then just wipe it with a clean paper towel, and in a minute you'll see me come back and actually do a little clear on that because that was still a little bit white for me. But this way I've got that white wax down inside the grooves. Now I've resorted to using my finger to get the wax out of the clear wax out of my container, because it's like literally I will have gotten my money's worth on this can for sure. But I'm just going to go ahead and do the other side and do the same thing and let you watch. Here is our finished product. I absolutely love the way this one came out. I think it is so sweet. Perfect, cottagecore, granny chic, shabby chic. I mean, it's absolutely beautiful. I love that birdie with these flowers, and that white wax is just absolutely the perfect finish. Our third tote, while I did pick it up at Goodwill, it is actually a Dollar General tote, and there's nothing wrong with it, and it's beautiful red, white, and blue, but you know what? Hey, what? July 4th is over. Let's give this a new look. I'm going to use Debi's Design Diary Hey Sailor clay-based paint, and it has gotten a little bit thick, but that's what's awesome about this paint. It is a water-based clay paint, so you can add water to reconstitute, is that the right word? To be able to cause it to get a little bit thin, and no worry about it thickening, just add some water. I am using this long handled skinny brush. I want to get down inside there really well, and so while it was a little bit more time consuming, it gave me a little bit more control, and it kept me from getting blue paint all over my hands while trying to stick down in that cubby. And I wanted to use the Hey Sailor because I thought it would be an easy way to cover up everything and still have the blue, so I didn't have to worry about it being quite so different. And this paint is so pigmented that it will do a wonderful job covering up that blue and white and red and white. Obviously the blue is fine, it's almost the same color, but that red and white, I wanted to hide that and go with an all blue. So we'll go ahead and get our one coat. I could have, if I wasn't just not wanting to have two dirty paintbrushes, I would have gotten a bigger brush for this outside. But hey, let's go ahead and use this one. After the initial coat was dry, I went back in with that second coat, and you can see here how it is completely covering. No sign of red or white anywhere. I'll go ahead and give a second coat to the inside and then a second coat to the outside on this side. I've done the other side. And once it has dried completely, I am going to use the IOD, and this is, I don't even know how old this is, so I'm not sure if this is still around or if it was one of the retired items, but this is the English Toile, is that right, Toile, design, and it's a brownish gray, and I think it's going to be really pretty on that blue. So I need to seal it first. I don't want to put this transfer on my clay-based paint without putting a seal, a clear coat in between. So I'm using my liquid patina, and I could have, probably run outside and sprayed it with my Rust-Oleum clear coat, but this was here, and this will dry crystal clear, chandelier, and I just went ahead and did this. Obviously, spraying it would have been easier when it comes to doing the inside, but I do go ahead and do outside and inside with this clear coat. Once it is completely dry, see, told you, totally clear. It does have a little bit of a sheen, but I don't mind. That's okay. And now I'm just going to take my page here. I think each one of these comes with 8 pages. You could do one giant wall or cabinet because they do line up and make a repeating design, but I am going to just cut out the pieces I need for this. So I'm kind of marking what part I want to make sure I get showing on the side of my tote, and then I'm just going to take my finger and my fingernail and push down there to create a groove so that when I'm cutting it out, I know exactly where to cut and what size I need. I do actually go ahead and end up cutting it into 2 pieces because the side of this, that top part, has a little bit higher layer, has a lip kind of on it. So I thought it would be easier. I go ahead and cut it in 2 pieces so that I can go around that corner and make sure that that is adhered first. I do that bottom part first, and then I go up and do the top. And just like I do with the other one and with any of them that I do, I give it an overall rub, and then I find a place to commit and I begin to pull up. If you pull part of it up and you're pulling up your design still on your carrier sheet, no problem. Just push it back down and rub again and rub a little bit harder. You don't have to rub completely hard. You don't want to, you can actually, like put grooves in your item. Like if you push too hard, I could make a streak in my tote, or, so I don't want you to think that you have to rub, so hard that you're putting dents in your items, but you just kind of rub hard enough to make sure that it gets attached. And some designs are easier than other. This particular one has a lot of little things. And same thing if you're doing something that has words and letters, you know, the little designs sometimes are a little harder. But here it is, one side done. And because this tote has those slats in there, I'm just taking my scraper and I'm kind of cutting it and breaking it in that groove so that I can make sure that it is down inside where those slats are. It'd look a little funny if the design was just floating above there. So I'm taking my finger and my fingernail and pushing it down in there, making sure that it is adhered on the sides inside there. And now I'm just kind of sanding. So, okay, if I'd been paying attention, I would have cut these little pieces off that just are floating up there where it's the bottom of the pattern that was right above it. But I didn't, and here it is. So I'm just sanding kind of some edges, and I'm sanding those to make them a little less obvious so it doesn't look like a design that just got cut. So next time, note to self, be a little bit more careful. And I figure I don't want to distress it too much. Remember, there's red and white under there. So I'm very, very lightly distressing, just making sure I get any pieces that might be a little bit that didn't connect. I am using the Fusion wax in Espresso. I love this brown. This wax is buttery smooth. It is just good like all the others. Really like this wax, but I want to do it there on the edge where I sanded that design. And then I'm also going here. This is adding the distress without actually sanding into that tote. Again, it has, you know, red and white in there that I don't want anybody to see. And then I come back and I grab all that extra that just sits on top and making sure that the wax is just down in those grooves. And it adds that aged look without doing too much sanding. And again, here I'm just taking my little finger sander and getting any places where it didn't adhere for one reason or another, or it peeled up, or just whatever on those edges. And then I'm going to take that wax and my little disposable artist brush here and poke down in there just to give me that distressed look. If you are not a fan of the distressed look, then obviously you can skip this and you can just do a clear coat over the top of it. You would not need to add this little aging look that I like so much. So don't let that discourage you or not be able to think of maybe how you could do it for your own style. And I didn't paint the bottom of this because I knew I was going to do this, but I have this felt and I just want to set a nice piece of felt down there to cover that bottom. It has where it had the Sharpie on it and it had a little dent in it. And I thought, you know, I'm just going to add a felt bottom to it. So I'm taking the pencil, marking around the box, and then just cutting it out with the scissors. Easy peasy. And now I am using my Beacon 3-in-1 glue. I always call this hot glue in a bottle because it does dry so fast. It's kind of like hot glue, only it is a lot easier to use because you don't have to plug anything in and you don't have to burn yourself. So I thought I would just use a little paintbrush, and then I thought, you know what, remember you've got like millions of these little plastic applicator sticks for the IOD, and it gave me a good tool to spread that glue around. The most important part was making sure that I got it to all of the edges because I don't want my felt to peel up. I want to make sure that it is adhered all over the bottom. So I set it down in that glue, and then I'm going to grab my brayer and use that to push down. So it's just a, you know, a rubber roller, and I can push down making sure that it is absolutely connected everywhere because I had that glue everywhere, and this is a sure way to have that attached. So red, white, and blue tote, reimagined. This is much more my style. I really love this, and I think that this would look good in any style decor. Our fourth and final tote is this little caddy. And, you know, I would typically assume it was a tulle caddy, but I honestly don't know with those perfectly even sized boxes in there. But you know what we're going to do? We're going to put it on its side and we're going to make a totally new item. So I'm just cleaning it. Believe it or not, that's just glass cleaner, but that's what was sitting here on my work desk. So I'm just wiping out some of the grime and gunk and dust that has gotten down in there. We are going to use Sweet Pickens milk paint in the color Flower Sack. This also is what's left from a Jamie Ray Vintage craft kit. And while I know I'm going to use all of it, I am putting it in one of my little cups here because I want to make sure I knew how much I had so that I know how much water to add in. Remember, it's equal parts water to paint powder. And so I'm going to mix that in. I, again, have warm water because that works a little bit better. It helps to dissolve that paint and make it a little smoother with less clumps. And then I'm going to use my little wire whisk. You can use a fork. If you're mixing a large amount, you might want to use an immersion blender, but I'm just going to use the little wire whisk. And now I have my paintbrush, and we're going to give this piece an overall coat. So we'll start with getting down in these cubbies. You know, I don't know what makes me think I want to paint inside cubbies with a paintbrush. Why didn't I just, like, I don't know, spray paint this one? But I didn't. Here we are. And I'm just going to give all the inside and outside a wonderful coat of this white color. Flower Sack just has a little hint of a gray to it. But it's a color I thought would go really well over red. Let's put it that way. So when it chips back, I like the idea of that red kind of shining through there. I think that red and that white are both a vintage antique kitchen looking color. And that's what I want to use this for. And that was my color scheme. Anyway, you'll see here in a little while.
Standing underneath the lights, looking into each other's eyes.
I did let this paint get a little bit thicker just because I let it sit a little while. Not necessarily on purpose, but it does show that it's giving a little bit stronger coverage here on this first coat. But here you can see when it's dry and I go back in with that second coat, how well it covers. So again, don't be afraid of milk paint. I love that chippy, crackly goodness that it gives you. But a lot of people think that it's going to take too many coats, and really it doesn't. I mean, 2 coats. And on this one, of course, obviously I am going with a worn old look. So 2 coats is absolutely plenty. And then I'm going to take my sander and come back and bring some of that red back. But I'm also kind of sanding where that crackle is and making sure that I can bring that out. Using what does determine to be the absolute end of my clear wax. I'm covering the whole thing with clear wax before I use that dark wax. And I am really rubbing that dark wax down in there. There's little nail holes and little dents from where it's old. And I want to make sure I get that way down in there so that it is obvious that this is a extremely old piece. And actually it is probably pretty old, but anyway. So here I had to break out a different kind of wax. This is the stuff that smells like lemons, so I don't mind. It's really good. But I'm coming over the top of it with clear wax. So remember, I had clear wax first, dark wax, and now I'm going with clear wax again because it's going to get all that dark off the top, but leave it down inside all of the dents and the crackle, leaving that beautiful aged look.
Tired snowflakes are coming down, collapse into water when they hit the ground.
Love it! I think it might actually be my favorite piece. So I'm just using a shoe shine brush, and I actually did this on all of them. I didn't show it. I almost didn't show it here. I like to wax and buff out. I like to brush and buff out that wax. It just gets so smooth, and I love it. It gives it a little bit of red. And now we are going to hang these D-ring hooks on the back because I am making a towel rack with cubbies. And so I put one, it has 2 screws on each side. So I put these little D-rings on here, and here is our finished product. You know, it would be awesome in a bathroom or a bedroom, anywhere that you would want to hang something, but I do have it displayed as kitchen. So let me know in the comments which one was your favorite. How would you do something differently? And if you're not already a subscriber, I would love if you would subscribe to our channel and share it out.